Hi everyone and welcome to the tutorial for Strutting by Jerry Reed. As always, let me start by rolling the Patreon credits, and today I can welcome Daniel and Raymond among the new top tier patrons. If you want to support the channel and gain access to a load of extras, then click the Patreon link to see what I have on offer there. If you want to support me without monthly fees, then there is a link to a PayPal tip jar as well. It doesn't happen often that a requested song immediately jumps up to the top ranks of my all-time favorite fingerstyle songs, but that is exactly what happened with Strutting. And that is why I decided not to wait for my next appointment with my barber and just go ahead and shoot the video with a full corona head of hair. Barbers have been closed down for close to 4 months now, and it is starting to get hard to hide. But back to Strutting. What an absolute blast to play this one. Somehow I just missed out on this song and I had to go and look it up when it was first requested. I ended up with a different Jerry Reed tune first because, if the story is correct, he already had a tune called Strutting when Chet Atkins recorded one of his unnamed compositions and gave it the exact same name. So a bit confusing at first, but I hope I have the right tune now. While Jerry's original version is great, the live version by Tommy Emmanuel is a lot more modern in approach, which is not surprising considering Jerry's version was released over 30 years ago. In Tommy's version there are a lot more slides and fills, making it much more pleasing to what our ears are used to in this day and age. So that is what this tutorial is based on. Jerry's original peppered with a healthy dose of Tommy's magic. The biggest difficulty in this song will probably be the bar across 4 strings with a pinky. Yes, you heard me right, a bar across 4 strings with a pinky. And this is not hidden somewhere at the end of the song, it's one of the first things you'll have to play in the intro, and it will pop up each time you start a new verse. I did look at alternatives, and while it is possible to use the ring finger in some cases, it really does make more sense to use the pinky rather than anything else. So pay close attention to the part on how you have to approach your playing posture for this part, and make sure the action on your guitar isn't too high. That will make it even more difficult. But once you get past that hurdle, things will become a lot easier quickly. The rest of the song isn't as difficult as other songs we already looked at. In part 1 we take apart the whole first verse, and that is where most of the challenges lie. As always, take all the time you need to get through this. Okay, so let's get to playing. The guitar is in drop D tuning, so all you have to do is drop down that low E string down to a D and you're good to go. You do need a thumb pick. I guess it is possible to play this song without one, since the tempo isn't that high. Should be perfectly possible to play this one without a thumb pick, but it really adds to the funky vibe if you do play it with one. Let's have a look at the intro, and the main challenge of the song is right all the way at the beginning. Let's have a first look. And that's all for the intro, so only 2 bars. And Mr. Jerry Reed, he starts out with a very peculiar or a very specific voicing. I've seen a lot of posts, or I have read a lot about this opening chord with some really established musicians telling everybody, well, I wouldn't know what to name that chord. My best guess is it's a D dominant 13 chord with a raised 9th, so with you both got the, let's say, the minor 3rd and the major 3rd in there, but Mr. Reed isn't playing the dominant 7th, the flat 7th degree in itself. So, but it really feels like a dominant chord. This is the fingering, and this is straight up where the main challenge lies. So you're starting with a little bar on the 4th fret, adding in the ring finger on the 6th fret on the B string, the middle finger 5th fret on the high E string, and then you will have to play a bar using the pinky, which is something that doesn't happen too often. So the very first chord is just D string, G string, B string, playing with the thumb pick, index finger and middle finger, as will be the case with all those triads in the intro. So, and then adding in the pinky on the 7th fret across 4 strings. Adding in the pinky to use a bar chord was something new for me as well. And the thing I learned, and something that I can really clearly see in Tommy Emmanuel's video as well, is you have to take the wrist all the way down low. You almost have to get the entire hand in line with the pinky to get this going. Even Tommy, with his massive hands and his perfectly set up guitar, his pinky is flat, but the wrist comes down all the way underneath to give you a clear sound on that bar chord. The thing you should do in this case, normally most people would just use their normal playing posture and add in whatever finger they need. This time you really have to go and look for whatever works for you to get the bar on the pinky to sound out. Right? And then work in the other fingers around that playing posture. What works for me? Laying down the pinky across 4 strings, getting the wrist all the way down and almost with a completely flat pinky, so no arc whatsoever, completely flat, pressing down, even using a little bit of forearm strength in there as well to get that pinky sounding right. Do make sure that you try this on an acoustic guitar that is set up properly. This is not an easy chord, and if you're trying this with a really high action, then it will basically become impossible straight from the get-go. So, one more time. And then you just leave that bar lying down and you just switch strings with the picking hand to the G string, B string, and E string. Back to the first chord, and then you, again moving to the G string, B string, E string, but removing the pinky, playing the chord voicing you already have up here with the 4th fret, 6th fret and 5th fret, and then back with the bar across 3 strings this time. So the first time you actually leave the bar down and you keep those notes and they ring across each other or they blend into each other. And the second time around you remove the pinky, you put it back down, and the second time around you only need those 3 top strings. Take care and be careful when doing this slowly in the beginning. This will put a strain or a pressure on the pinky that it is not used to dealing with, so don't overdo it from the beginning. The good news is this fingering actually doesn't pop up too often in the way Tommy plays it, so you will have to play this each time when the verse starts, and then after that Tommy uses a load of embellishments and other fingerings, and you don't actually need to play that little section with the bar in the pinky again until you start the next verse. So one more time, this is the intro. And then the last time around, instead of going back to the bar on the 7th fret, it's just an open A string heading you straight into the first verse. One more time, really slowly. And then that one bass note is actually sort of an upbeat into the next part, which is the first verse. One more time, really slowly, just so you can have a good listen to that rhythm. As I mentioned several times, take care for the pinky. Don't put too much pressure on it right away. Make sure the wrist is nice down low. Push down with the pinky stretched out all the way straight, no arc in there whatsoever, and really build this intro section around the playing posture that is needed to get the sound out of the pinky. One more time, really slowly. And then straight into the first verse. I cannot stress this enough. Give the little fella, give your pinky the necessary time to build up some strength, to adjust to that new playing posture, because he is in for a rough ride. After that, it's straight into the first verse. The first verse is a bit of a special one. The structure of the first verse is a little bit different from the other verses. So verse 1, I think, is about 18 or 19 bars. Then starting from verse 2, it's always the exact same thing. 16 bars for the verse, and the structure, I think, roughly is verse, chorus, verse, ending. So that is basically from that point on, starting from the second verse, it's basically the same thing each and every time with some variations or a few different fills. First, verse 1. I'm going to play through it once, just a little bit below concert speed. Straight into the next verse. Now, there is a lot going on in there. The opening section is the exact same melody as you played in the intro, so you have to pay the exact same attention to what you are doing with the wrist. All the way down low, making sure you can get that pinky in. If you watch Tommy's version, even if you also watch Jerry Reed's original version, you will see that each and every time when this section comes around, that wrist always drops down straight away just for that opening section and then comes back up for the rest of the verse. So shifting in and out of that different playing position will be a part of the challenge here. The melody is the exact same thing. Now, instead of playing 3 strings as you always did in the intro, now you will most of the time be playing 2 strings on top in the melody and using the thumb pick to play the boom chick bass pattern. If you watch Jerry's original version, he actually often uses the ring finger as well, playing those those triad melodies as you did in the intro in the exact same way. Tommy loses one of those notes in the melody, typically the bottom one, to give it a bit more groove, I suspect. So that is what I will be showing you. So this is the opening bar. The same melody as in the intro, starting on the G string and the B string, 4th fret, 6th fret, together with the open low D string, muted, of course. Then thumb pick, index finger, middle finger on the D string, G string and B string. So thumb pick, index finger, middle finger. You can aim for a little bit of muting on that D string, but make sure the G string and the B string ring out clearly. Keeping down the bar, shifting the index finger and middle finger to the high B and E string and playing the low A bass string, the low A bass string. Back to the G and B string for the melody, and then you're going to play that again using the thumb pick on the B string and following that straight up with a little bar across 2 strings. And then that low D bass note is already the first note of the next bar. One more time, really slowly. That is the first bar. On to the second bar. I'm going to play the first bar again because the second bar actually, that last bar across the 7th fret is the first melody of the first melody note of the next bar. So what you get in the second bar is that melody note straight in front of the first beat. 3, 4. So what you get is that last melody note, open the E string, then the melody separately, index finger, middle finger on the 6th fret and 5th fret, and then again a little bar on the 7th fret together with a thumb pick on the D string. 3, 4. And then a quick position shift going down, 4th fret on the D string, 2nd fret on the G string, and an open B string. And usually Tommy really lets this chord ring out open all the way through, not even muting the note on the D string. One more time, that bar separately. 3, 4. And back to the low open D string. Let me play those first 2 bars back to back really slowly. One more time, maybe even a little bit slower. Once you get this down, once you get this fingering down, this is the hardest part of the whole song. Everything else that follows will be easier in terms of fingering. One more time, even a bit slower. On to the next bar. Already a lot easier. So you had this fingering from the previous bar, index finger, ring finger, and then the open B string. While that rings out, you add in a low D string, adding in the middle finger on the 3rd fret, giving you a full D triad. Then moving to this voicing, we already know that one from the intro, bar across the 4th fret, adding in the ring finger on the 6th fret, together with an open A string. And then just a bar across the 7th fret, using the thumb pick on the D string and index finger and middle finger on the B and G string. So this one rang out from the previous bar. Next bar. It's like I said, it's easier than the first 2 bars. Sliding, so you had that bar at the 7th fret, sliding to the 7th fret again, so just from the 6th fret up to the 7th fret, while playing a low open D string. And then Tommy just lays down a little bar across the 5th fret, across the 5th fret on the B and E string. Sometimes he only plays that high E string, sometimes he plays the B string and the E string at the same time. So I wouldn't mind that too much, whatever works for you. Together with the open D string. And then going for a D dominant chord with a raised 9th, sort of the Jimi Hendrix chord. So middle finger on the 5th fret, index finger 4th fret on the D string, ring finger 5th fret, pinky 6th fret. You're actually not playing the note on the D string, but it is there for safety. Should you miss with the thumb pick, then that F sharp is going to sound just fine. To an open E string on top, so thumb pick, middle finger, index finger, middle finger, to an open E string. And then using, I think, the index finger, yes, I had to check just for a second, the index finger to the 4th fret, leading up to the 5th fret, which is the first bass note of the next bar. That one bar just by itself. Those 2 bars we just saw back to back, so you get, this was the last chord of the 2nd bar, this rings out, 3, 4. Maybe even a bit slower, 3, 4. And now, let me try and play those first 4 bars back to back with each other, giving you the main challenge of the song. That was already the next bar. So really take your time for those first 4 bars. Like I said, playing this slowly is harder on the pinky. Once you get the feeling that you get these notes clearly, those bars with the pinky, then try to speed it up just a little bit. It will become a little bit easier. Just one more time, a little bit more up the tempo. Then on to the next bar. I I said, nothing too difficult compared to those first 2 bars. Little bar across the 3rd fret, across the D string, G string and B string, and the ring finger 5th fret on the low E string, giving you a G because of the drop D tuning. And it's basically what you would play if you were accompanying somebody with the blues. So this is what happens. Just a quick hammer on, index finger on the G string, middle finger on the B string, starting from just a bar on the 3rd fret, hammering on to the 4th fret straight away. A really quick hammer on together with the low G note on the E string. Keeping down the same chord, moving the thumb pick to the D string. Adding in the pinky 5th fret on the B string together with an open D string this time. So the bass part in this section is alternating between the low E string and the D string, or because of the drop D tuning, the low D string and the high D string. So you don't need the A string in between there. So hammering on, keeping the chord down, thumb pick to the D string, open D string together with the 5th fret on the B string, and then back to the same chord, again hammering on from the 3rd fret to the 4th fret. Next bar is just a low G string and then 3 open strings followed by a bass line going from the 3rd fret to the 2nd fret, all on the low E string. And then back to, we already played this voicing once before. 4th fret, 2nd fret with the ring finger and the index finger, and an open B string. But this time we're sliding into that chord. All notes except, of course, that open D string, that open B string. So this is the first chord, 3rd fret, 1st fret, open B string, and you slide up those 2 fingers. And back to an open D string. That little part on the G chord by itself. And again, all by this point, all more or less familiar voicings. So you're ending on that last chord, 3, 4. So, and what is happening is, the chord is ringing out, you add in a low D string. Same move, adding in the middle finger on the 3rd fret. Same thing as we did a few bars earlier, going for a full D triad. Moving the thumb pick to the A string, removing the middle finger again to an open B string, the rest of the chord stays where it is, and then a quick slide on the 7th fret using the thumb pick on the D string, index finger, middle finger on the G and B string. And that slide goes from the 6th fret to the 7th fret and then straight back down. Next bar is nothing but a bass line. Open D string, open A string, 2nd fret on the A string, 4th fret on the A string. I'm using open string, index finger, ring finger. Those 2 bars back to back. 3, 4. And then basically straight into a repeat of what you just saw with a few variations. Make sure you get all the fingerings and the thumb picking pattern right in these first 8 bars, and then you will have quite a lot of stuff that you can just repeat throughout the rest of the song. Getting this right from the first time around will save you a lot of time. Let me play those last 4 bars back to back, and then I'm going to repeat the full 8 bars we saw up until this point, and then we'll have a look at what is different in the next section. Here we go, those 4 bars we just looked at, starting from the G chord. So those were the 4 bars we just looked at, starting from the G chord. Now the full 8 bars we saw up to this point. then the next few bars are a repetition, but Tommy starts adding in a few fills right away. Let's have a look. First bar, exactly the same thing. Up to that point, the second bar is the exact same thing too. Then for the very last chord, you're heading up to the 10th fret, little bar across 2 strings, index finger across the B string and the high E string, adding in the middle finger on the 11th fret, giving you a D triad all the way up to the neck. And you're sliding down, straight down, because you have to play something at that 5th or 7th position straight away. So this is how it sounds. You're using that slide going down, you're sort of covering that up by playing that open D bass note, heading for the 7th fret. Again, a little bar with the ring finger across 3 strings, G string, B string and E string, together with the open D string. And then going for a D dominant voicing, same thing you would play on the 5th fret, only not using a bar, and just working that straight up. So 4th fret, 6th fret, you could sort of assume that this is again this voicing. Tommy actually already adds in the ring finger on the 6th fret to get that 7th fret ready in just a second for the bass line, which is a lot easier than having to add it in once you end up there. So Tommy just moves up that full chord voicing, index finger, pinky and ring finger, 6th fret, 4th fret, 6th fret, and then plays that ring finger once it arrives on the 7th fret, making it just a little bit easier. 3, 4. And that first chord, almost forgot, you play that together with the open A bass string. Finishing up that bar with another I can't remember by heart if it's played with the slide or just the bar at the 7th fret, but the exact same thing you played in the beginning of this bar. Just the D string and the 5th fret on the high E string. Just the D string, the 5th fret on the high E string, and then all open strings, open B string, open E string, and a low open D string, adding in the index finger on the 1st fret, and you will end that chromatic bass line on the 2nd fret with the middle finger in just a second. Let me play those 4 bars all the way through, really slowly. Ending up on a D dominant 7th chord, which is a bit harder as a voicing because of the drop D tuning. So middle finger 2nd fret, open D string, index finger 1st fret on the G string, pinky 3rd fret on the B string, and then adding in, at least for the beginning of the bar, the ring finger on the 2nd fret on the high E string, giving you an E dominant 9th chord. Let me play the bar. You're basically always moving around the same chord. Tommy, again, does this freaky trick where he frets those 2 bass strings with the same finger. So I can do it if I pay attention, but I can't yet do it while playing the song all the way through. So he just pushes down with the middle finger and gets those 2 strings at the same time. Whenever I play the song live, I just alternate with the middle finger between those 2 strings. So playing thumb pick on the low D string and then index finger, middle finger on the G string and B string. Moving the thumb pick to the D string and removing the pinky at the same time. And then I alternate with the middle finger to the A string. Putting back the pinky. So removing the pinky, putting it straight back down, shifting with the index finger and middle finger to the high B and E string. Again, an open D bass string, removing the pinky again, and playing the G string and B string once more. back with the middle finger to the low D string. So you're basically always alternating between those two strings. That was the second bar. And it's more or less the same movement. So you're starting on that first low bass note, playing low E bass note, then the thumb pick open D string together with the high E string, back to the B string, still holding down the 3rd fret, again alternating to the A string, and again removing the pinky. Those 2 bars, or maybe just that 1 bar first. And then those 2 bars back to back. All open strings, the easiest part of the song. Open A string, open G string, B string, and G string. Adding in a G triad, 5th fret, 4th fret, 3rd fret. Nothing you haven't played before if you have played those full bar chords. Removing the ring finger but flattening the index finger, giving you another G triad. Moving to the 7th fret, again giving you another G triad, bar across the 7th fret, adding in the middle finger on the B string on the 8th fret. And as soon as you end up on that 7th fret, you add in the open A string again, and you will keep playing that A string in straight quarter notes while playing a little melody in triads on top of that. And that bass note leads into the next verse. Let's have a look at those chords. So we already looked at this: G triad, G triad, G triad. And then with the ring finger or the pinky, whatever works best, pulling off from the 9th fret to the 7th fret, then to an A triad, 6th fret with the middle finger, and then a little bar across the 5th fret with the index finger. Moving that down, again with the pinky on top, pulling off from the 5th fret to the 3rd fret, just a bar across the 2nd fret, and then only the 2nd fret on the B string. Without the bass line, sounds like this: 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and then on to the next part. So that timing there's a bit of timing displacement going on. It's basically a group roughly of 3 in a bar of 4. So you feel it shifting around a little bit. One more time without the bass line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and so on. Now with the bass line underneath, for the first 3 counts, it's just an open A bass string that keeps ringing on. Then you start pumping that A bass string in straight quarter notes. Now just one thing to watch out for is that when you perform those pull-offs, they should land exactly on the bass note each time. As you pull off to the 7th fret, as you land that target note on the 7th fret, you should play the bass note at the exact same time. And the exact same thing there, pulling off from the 5th fret to the 3rd fret, and at the exact same time as you are landing the target note on the 3rd fret, play the open A bass string. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, Tommy plays some funky ghost notes once he plays that pull-off lick going up in the bass line. And basically he's just pulling up like a slap bass player would do, just pulling up that D string with the index finger and making it click against the fretboard while muting with the left hand. And then you're straight into the second verse, which is mostly a repeat of what you just played. Let me play those last 4 bars or those last 5 bars with the chord pattern going up all the way through. Then the full second section of the first verse, and then I think you're pretty set to have a look at what happens in the second verse, and you'll see pretty much that a lot of what is coming now will be repetition. Here we go, one more time, those last 5 or 6 bars. Straight into the next part. The last or the second half of the first verse, all the way through, really, really slowly. To the second verse. That was the first verse. Let me try and play this all the way through really slowly one more time, and then it's on to the next part of the song. Here we go. Then on to the next verse, and as you will see in the next part of the tutorial, that most of what is happening in the second verse, you already know that by now. So take your time getting the first part down, getting the first verse down. Once all of that works, then you can basically play each and every single verse that reappears throughout the song. Take your time for this, and I will see you again next week with the next part of strutting. See you there.